Hey guys, and welcome to episode 2, where we're going to be looking at Pytest. In the previous video, we took a look at a simple function inside main.py. We had a simple test inside test.py, and we simply went ahead and ran pytest test.py. What I want to do this time is be a bit more advanced, so I want to be creating a class and then basically writing the tests as we go along. You may have heard of test-driven development. That's basically where you effectively write the tests first and decide upon all the outputs and then kind of write your code to suit. This is a little bit similar. It's not strictly test-driven development, but I'm going to be writing a bit of the class, writing the tests for it, and then so on and so forth. So if you're brand new to Pytest and, more object orientation, I guess, here in this case, because I'm going to be doing a class and testing it, then yeah, this should be pretty helpful. So our class is going to be called person. We're going to have 3 attributes: first name, last name, and age. So string, string, and int. I'm going to be defining a property called forName. This will be the concatenation of these two. I'll then have a method called updateAge as well. So let's go ahead and say class person here, and then let's go ahead and then do our 3 attributes. So we'll come along and do def init pass in self. So this, of course, this will be a reference back to the variable. And we want first name. In fact, you know what, we'll just do fname. You're going to be a string. We'll say lname. You're going to be a string as well. And then age, you can be an integer. Okay, looks good. So self.fname. Hopefully my typos pick it up. There we go. Self.lname. There we go, set up lname here. There we are. And then finally we set up self.age as equal to age here. And I'll go ahead and just run this, make sure there's no obvious syntax errors. And then what I'd like to go ahead and do, let's go ahead and say John is equal to a person. Okay, once fname, let's just go ahead and say John Smith. Okay, pretty standard name, right? And then 55 here. So I'll go ahead and run. We have an instance, and there we go. So my first test would be basically as follows. I just want to make sure that I can make a class, double check we have these 3 attributes here. So imagine if you're in some situation where this is going to be like a definite. We always want a person class. We always want these 3 attributes. We could then go ahead and write a test to do that. So we'll hop over from here into test.py, and then we'll say from main, let's go ahead and import my class. So it should do import there we go, person. And then we're good to go. So basically what I'm going to be testing for here is that I can just do this. So if I can set up an instance of person and I can effectively set these attributes, that's a pretty standard, pretty straightforward test. So let's just go and do def test person create, or do creation. There we go, like this here. And let's go ahead and say mock, well, actually no, I should say test instance. This here. This is going to be a person, and let's go ahead and pass in, tell you what, we'll go ahead and pass in these 3 things here, just like this. So it's taking in these 3 things. Okay, so underneath we could then do our assertion. So we know that we can give our person class, John Smith 55. We're just going to check that it basically has these attributes set up. And there's a few ways you could do it, really. One thing you could do is just do assert, and then we'll do test instance dot fname is equal to, and we'll just go ahead and check that. And what I will do is do this and this, change this to lname, and then do this as age here. So we'll say equals 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 equals, pass in John here, we'll pass in this, and then pass in 55 here. Okay, let's go ahead and run our code. Yeah, looks good. Let's go ahead and then run the Pytests. And there we go, looks good. So the whole point of this may seem like a pretty arbitrary test, but if you imagine that, suppose this class is starting off pretty small, but imagine if like lots of things were depending on this, and, maybe these attributes are pivotal to other functions in your code. A simple test like this, it's just making sure that our class can be set up, or an instance of our class can be set up, and it's also checking that we can go ahead and set a couple of different things here. One thing we could do, if I just go ahead and run, so see how that passes this time. Suppose if I did like, I don't know, this here. Okay, so now we can see it failing because we've set up an instance with John, but then we're saying go ahead and assert that the fname is equal to John's with an S on the end. So that's why we see this test fail here. Now one test you could even do before all of these here is just make sure that the fname, lname and age attributes actually exist. Because obviously otherwise, if you try and do this here, and suppose the fname attribute isn't there, then yeah, it's not going to be very good for us. So what we could do, I'll show you a really interesting thing we can do here. If you do print vars of John, right? Vars accesses the dict attribute or dictionary attribute, and see how we get this little thing here. There you go. So fname, lname, and age. Then let's do dot keys here. So now we're accessing the dictionary keys, and we get this fname, lname, age like this here. So suppose if we take this here, let's pass this. Suppose this is our expected equals. So what we could then do inside our test is just make sure that the actual dictionary key is the same as this here. So we could say the following. We could do test instance. In fact, go back and pinch it from here. So take all of this, do that, except it's no longer John, it's our test instance. Make sure that this is equal to expected here. And then last thing we need to do is then go ahead and actually convert this into a list here, like that. All right. Okay, looks good. So let's suppose, for example, I don't know, maybe we did this here. Let's go ahead and hit run. Now it should fail. There we go. Because basically this time the attributes aren't matching. So yeah, that's good. Good to see it failing. Put this back as lname here. So again, this might seem pretty arbitrary, but this is just checking like the absolute bare bones functionality of this class. Does it have the attributes we expect? Well, we've done that in this check here. And then in these bottom 3 lines here, we're just saying, just go ahead and check that the fname of our test instance is actually what we expect it to be. So it is a pretty arbitrary test, but it's one that's pretty foundational. And of course, if you're trying to learn tests, it's a good one just to practice writing to make sure that you can test an instance of a class is set up and good to go. Now then, next up we want to do a property. So we can say property is going to be equal to full name, and this full name is going to be a concatenation of first name and last name. So let's go ahead and make the property first. So we'll do property here, and it's going to be def full name self like this, and it's going to be simply return an f string. So I'll just do it like this, like self dot fname and self dot lname. So we'll take this can go in here, this can go in here, but we'll just put that as lname instead. And what does this return? This returns a string. So to write our test, we'll come along and then do def test full name like this here. Okay. And you know what, just pinch this guy for the time being. And then, so given that we have John Smith, obviously we're going to expect John Smith to be returned from our full name property, like this here. So all we need to do now is just assert that my test instance asserts that its full name property is indeed equal to, in fact, you know what, just do it wrong initially. So if you don't do it with the space in the middle, it should fail this test. There we go. Yeah, but of course ours does have it like this. So we'll run that again. It passes. So just to give you an example of this working in practice, like imagine if someone did come along and change your code and they got rid of that space in the middle, it should fail the test. It does. Okay, so this time it's saying, okay, this didn't match this. One thing you could do as well, if you did something like this here, then you see this oops here appear. So this is basically a little way, like if you do assert some statement, comma, and then a string, this string will appear at the end. So you can basically say, I don't know, something is wrong with the full name property, like this. I'll just clear that again for you, run that one more time. There we go. So assertion error, something is wrong with the full name property. So sometimes you might want to give a bit of feedback as to why something's failed as well. So what I would now want to do is do test this, and let's do test instance. We'll do, tell you what, we'll do this one as A. Actually, that's wrong, isn't it? We'll do underscore A, underscore B, and then underscore C, and then same thing for these guys as well. B, C, like this here. And is that right? No, it's not. I missed out a C there. So now we'll do a few more. So we'll do James Smith, and this one we expect to be James Smith as well. And then, trust, it doesn't really matter what you do for the fields. Like, you know, you could do DEF like that, and then this should now be ABC, DEF. We'll go back and fix this guy here. Now let's run our tests, and we should see, there we go. So our 2 tests passed, except that obviously our full name test, this is doing 3 different use cases here. So To pass this one, we have to create 3 instances, and then we're just making sure that the full name property works fine for those 3 instances. Again, one more time, we've done this comma at the end to basically say, if this test fails or if this assertion comes back as false, here's what to show on the screen. Now, last thing we want to do is a method to update the age here. So let's see. For this one, we can make it do something rather interesting. So if we do update age, and we'll do self, and we'll just do new age like this here. It doesn't return anything. So we can do none here like this. And then what we'll do is a little bit of logic. So we'll basically say if new age, let's see, is greater than 0, we'll do self.age is indeed equal to that new age we've just done. If not, we can then go ahead and do, in fact, we'll do return here. Or we'll go ahead and raise a value error like this. So because we've basically got sort of 2 avenues of execution, we can either finish here and we should have a new age, or we can be raising a value error. So we basically want to check both these situations. So we'll go ahead and do, let's see, I'm going to copy this because I'll be needing it. And let's go ahead and do def test setting and age like this here. Okay, so I'll set up an instance. And then we'll go ahead and do test instance a dot update age, and let's go ahead and say 100 here. So bear in mind that if we had called update age with 100, test instances, in fact, we're just going to do 1 instance, we can get rid of underscore a. So if this has worked correctly, we would expect the test instance, its age attribute, to be 100 like this here. So that's what we want to be true. So we'll go ahead and just say assert this. And with some luck, we should have, yeah, there we go, looks good. Let's make it do something wrong. So if we purposely break the method, there we go. So now we can see it failing now. And yeah, that doesn't look good, does it? So let's go ahead and remove that. Do this here. And now our tests pass again, which is good. Now then, this one's a little bit trickier. So what we're going to be doing this time, let's go ahead and just try and copy this, is that we want to check that it actually raises an error. So let's do test setting age with invalid inputs like this here. So let's just try something. If I just did, say, -10, okay, we'll get rid of the assertion for the time being, and we'll just clear the screen and run our tests. Okay, so we can see the value error coming out the other side. What we need to do, though, is use Pytest. So what we're going to do is import Pytest, and we can use a little feature. It looks a bit like a context manager. No, not Pytest lazy fixture, just Pytest like this here. There we go. Okay, and we're going to be using a little bit of a quirk with Pytest to basically say, make sure that this is raised. So what I'm going to be doing is the following here. I'll just comment this out for a second. We'll use with, and then we'll say Pytest.raises, and then in here we can say value error. Okay, now we can go ahead and do this here. So let's go ahead and remove this bit. Clear our screen and run again, and we see our test pass. So 4 tests passed, so that's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. So what this is doing, this context manager is effectively only going to get to the end if this error is raised inside here. So suppose, for example, if you called it with like 5 here, this time we can see it failing because, yeah, it did not raise a class value error. This can be anything, it could be a custom error, but in this case, because our method is raising a value error, we're writing a test to make sure that this actually happens. So do it one more time. We'll do -5. We know that given our code, if new age is greater than 0, go ahead and do this. If not, raise a value error. Then in this case, yeah, we'd expect a value error to happen if we call our method with -5. And that looks good. We can see our tests all passing and they're good to go. So just to recap, I know some of these may seem kind of trivial, but if you're brand new to Pytest, a lot of testing is effectively just this. We have a class, we have some attributes, so we have tests to basically say, make sure the attributes are there, make sure they can be set. We have a property, and of course to test that we created 3 different instances, and we asserted that the output of that property is exactly as we expected here. And the benefit of that is that, like, you might have stuff depending on your class down the line that might break if that property changes. So the fact that we've got these tests here to basically say, go ahead and create a number of different instances, check that the outputs are exactly as expected. So, if stuff changes down the line, all you got to do is run the tests again. This is going to say, give my class this, check it comes back with this. It's a nice simple way to make sure that your code isn't going to break. And then finally, we did two little methods to test our age setting method here. So this one here is basically saying update the age to 100 and just check that the age attribute did indeed end up as 100. And then our fancy one at the bottom, which we had to import Pytest for, this little context manager is basically expecting to see this sort of error happen when the indented code is run. So we know that our update age method is going to raise a value error if something 0 or less is passed in. So what we've done is define an instance and then say, right, go ahead and just check that a value error is raised when we call this method with -5. That's it, guys. So I hope this is helpful. If you want to see some more specific things in Pytest, feel free to let me know. But I will be making this a fairly sizable series. Cheers for watching, guys, and have a great weekend.